evening. You're watching Left, Right and Centre this Thursday night. I'm Nidhi Razdan. On the show this evening, the Maharashtra government's controversial decision to give Muslims and Marathas reservations evokes a strong reaction from the centre, which calls it unconstitutional. Will these quotas even hold up in court? Is this vote bank politics by the Congress-NCP government ahead of state elections? And as he completes 1 month in office, Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he didn't have the luxury of a honeymoon period like everyone else. In fact, he says it only lasted 100 hours as he talks of the controversies that have dogged his government. What's the 30-day report card for the Modi Sarkar? That's a little later, but first, the Maharashtra Cabinet's decision late last night to clear quotas for Muslims and Marathas has been strongly criticised by the BJP, with Minority Affairs Minister Najma Heptullah calling it unconstitutional. In fact, the Muslim quota could face huge legal trouble in court as it has in the past. But the Chief Minister has brazened it out, saying they'll explain their stand to a court if needed. Sharad Pawar went a step further, saying it was a long-pending demand that they fulfilled, and if we do get some benefits, so be it. We're not saints.
कहते हैं कि पॉलिटिक्स में टाइमिंग सब कुछ होता है और टाइमिंग देखिए इलेक्शन के पहले ही हुआ है, तो क्या ये वोट लेने के लिए आपने किया है?
ये प्रोसेस पिछले 15-20 साल से राज्य में चल रहा था और आज ये इत्तेफाक है कि प्रोसेस कंप्लीट हुआ है और ये निर्णय हुआ है. बिल्कुल इसको इलेक्शन से जोड़ना नहीं चाहिए.
Rhetoric not many are buying. Months before state elections, the Maharashtra government controversially granting quotas for Muslims and Marathas. And then there are legal hurdles too. First, reservation on the basis of religion is against the Constitution of India, and therefore to bypass that, these quotas have been extended under the economically and socially backward category. Second, the Supreme Court says reservations can't be more than 50%, whereas in Maharashtra, it has already touched a whopping 73%.
Neither the Chief Minister nor the Congress party are so innocent or ignorant that they don't know that is going to be struck down by the Supreme Court. We want to liberate them from this psychosis and the kind of a mentality the Congress has created of, we will give you reservation.
The move, the BJP says, reflects the desperation of the ruling class. Reason why Chief Minister Prithviraj Chavan would hope no one drags them to court. With Siddharth Pandey in Mumbai, Tejas Mehta for NDTV.
Well, there are huge legal problems that this move by the Maharashtra government could face, but clearly they're not bothered by that. Perhaps it's the message that they want to send out ahead of state elections due in Maharashtra later this year, possibly in October. Joining us tonight, Chandan Mitra, Rajya Sabha MP of the BJP and spokesperson of the party. Sanjay Jha of the Congress joins us tonight from Mumbai. Ashok Malik here in the studio with us, our commentator this evening. Also Siddharth Bhatia joining us from Mumbai. Amir Raza Hussain also with us this evening. Let me first take that question to Sanjay Jha. Sanjay, in a sense, Sharad Pawar gave it away. I mean, he said, if we derive some benefits from this in the election, so be it. We're not saints. So now that's an open admission that this is all about the state elections. Whether it's constitutional or not doesn't matter.
Well, let me tell you, firstly, the fact on the ground, Nidhi, is that this issue has been debated for a considerable time. And let me place one fact on the perspective right at the very beginning. I'm going to quote to you two very eminent people. One is the leader of the opposition in the Legislative Council, Mr. Vinod Tawade of the BJP, who supports the reservations for the Marathas, and Mr. Ramdas Ataule, who is one of the members of the BJP Shiv Sena combined, who supports the reservations for the Marathas. So let me just put that aside for the moment, but it's good to know that at the very beginning before we hear some doublespeak and hypocritical assertions. The most important point that we should remember, and I think that's the larger point I want to make in today's debate, is that whether, it's affirmative action or positive discrimination, there is no denying that as per the Constitution, there is a provision for reservations for socially disadvantaged people in our society.
But not
and that's the reason why you have... Well, no, let me answer that. I'm glad you asked me that question. If you, Nidhi, let me take you back to the Mandal Commission. I'm sure people on the panel will be aware of it. The Mandal Commission identified groups of Muslims who were deemed backward. So when you look at the states, and I want to give you examples of 3 states that everybody talks about, which is true, which is Kerala, where you have 12% reservations for Muslims, but in the backward category, and the same in Tamil Nadu as well as in Karnataka. And they have all been fairly successful in improving the conditions and participation in government service, in education, even in well, not so much in
Sanjay,
private sector
you're not answering
employment,
my first
but
question,
the
which is the
underrepresentation
motivation
was
of this.
pretty much
You know,
a fact that you cannot
Sharad
ignore.
Pawar says we are not saints. You know, if we're going to benefit from this in the election, so be it. You know, A, of course, is the timing. You know, everybody wakes up to the plight of backward Muslims just before an election. Your government did the same thing just before the UP elections and got into trouble with the courts over it. You're repeating the same mistake.
Well, let me tell you, I think, you know, Mr. Chavan has categorically mentioned that this will have, and if you read any of the legal cases that even went up to the Supreme Court, I think these have been studied in great detail for a considerable period of time. I don't think there's anything unconstitutional about it. And the second point, and the more important point, is the timing is irrelevant, Nidhi. It's unfortunate, and I do agree that ideally this should have happened some time back. You know, every time you do something like this with elections 4 months away, people read a motive into it. But when you look at social justice, or you want to create greater equity in society, then I think timing should not be considered to be having a political complexion. What has to be done, what is relevant, ought to be done.
Okay, and
I think
Chandan
if
Mitra,
on a
Mr.
larger
Chandan
political
Mitra,
level there is a
just bring you in
consensus,
here.
there should be no problem.
Mr. Mitra, on the point about the Maratha reservation though, it seems that the state BJP leadership doesn't have a problem with that. So on the principle of reservation, clearly you're okay with it as long as it's for certain categories. But it is on the question of reservations for Muslims where the red flag is raised.
Well, before I come to this, the point, I just want to point out that really my friend Mr. Sanjay Jha has today demonstrated what is being said all over the country, that the Congress at present is simply brain dead, because they are repeating ad nauseum the same arguments and the same justifications to support their vote bank politics, which resulted in their being wiped out in the last Lok Sabha election. I wish they'll come up with some better arguments, and there should be some thinking in the Congress party. It will make matters a little more intellectually stimulating for us also. And as far as your question, Marathas versus Muslims, you see, the Constitution, as Sanjay also pointed out, permits special provisions to be made for socially and economic and educationally backward classes, SEBCs. Now, it also specifically debars these kind of special provisions on the grounds of religion, caste or creed. Now, socially and educationally backward classes is something left to the state governments to define. There are commissions for that, and that is not constitutionally improper. I mean, only some time ago, Jats were granted reservation. There has been reservations for various SEBC communities. There's never been a problem. But you cannot give reservations to a particular religious community by taking the plea that the entire community is socially and educationally backward, which we all know is not true as far as Muslims are concerned. So this is a backdoor kind of, legalization or legitimization of what is absolute rank communalism, which the Congress has practiced from ever since independence. This time, after having got a bloody nose in the elections, they still haven't learnt.
Okay, Sanjay has a quick response, then I'll come to Amir Raza Hussain. Yes, Sanjay.
Actually, it's Mr. Mitra who's carrying out his electoral rhetoric, and he believes the elections are still on. But let me answer you. This is the same party. The Gujarat government of Mr. Modi, when he was chief minister, has challenged the Sachar committee, which has highlighted statistics and figures, and I've got all of them with me, which tell you how Muslims in this country are grossly underrepresented in many parts of government services, etc.
But the point
I'm
is,
telling you,
why does the Congress wake up to the problems that the Muslim community faces in this country every time an election is due? It happened before the UP and Punjab polls last time. Now it's happening just months before the Maharashtra elections. I mean, if you want to do something serious for the Muslim community, then it has to be something over a long period of time, not 2 months before an election takes place.
Nidhi, let me finish my first point, I'll answer your question. But when you have a BJP government that challenges a Sachar committee approved by the High Court in the Supreme Court as unconstitutional, you can see the very motivations of the BJP towards the minority community. And I agree with you that the timing, I wish I told you earlier, should have been a little earlier, because I think we need to understand the perceptions do make an impact. I think as a party, we need to be a lot more savvy about it. I'll confess with on that with you on your channel. But that does not change the German reality that the BJP here has a Minister of Minority Affairs. Why do you have a Ministry of Minority Affairs if you believe that there is no minority issue? If you feel that it's all about
she doesn't believe
justice
Muslims
for all,
are a minority,
why do you
which
have
was another
ministry?
controversy, which was a different point.
Which is then in that case, why have a nomenclature?
Yes,
and why
Mr.
are they
Mitra,
contesting the Sachar committee as unconstitutional?
Yes, and then I'll come to Amir Raza.
Yes. On Sachar committee, and what did Sachar committee say? Sachar committee proved that Muslims have a far better representation in government jobs, in the police, in educational institutions, in Gujarat compared to other states of India. So, I mean, Sachar committee itself, which we did not want because it was formed for a community, but still, please read the Sachar committee report, Mr. Jha, before you raise it here.
Okay, Amir Raza Hussain,
Mitra,
is this tokenism?
Mr. Mitra, you are not even willing to pay 500 rupees for education.
One moment, let me just get in.
25% contribution your
Sanjay,
state
please
government
let
was
me
not
get
willing
other
to do for the
panelists
poor minority children.
Okay, new rule on the show. I'm going to tell everybody now, mics will go down if there are long unnecessary arguments. Amir Raza Hussain, to you on this, is this tokenism? Do you see this move as a desperate political attempt by the Congress-NCP government just before elections? Or, you know, is it driven by a genuine motive, you think?
Absolutely not. You know, I have to agree with Chandan there. You know, they've been in power in Maharashtra for over 15 years, for God's sakes. Why in the last 3 months? In any case, I am completely against quotas for any kind of community. I just don't think they work. But in terms of, you know, let me tell Mr. Jha that what happens to the Muslim community when you announce a quota like this, you see, you are not going to be, the elections are going to be in October. You may or may not come back. If you come back, well and good. If you don't come back, this quota is going to be thrown out. Now, what happens in the next 3 months? You are going to have the majority community get a feeling that, you know, why the hell are these guys getting 4%, 4.5% reservation? It's unfair. And you polarize an already polarized polity. Maharashtra has a polarized election. Bombay has a polarized election. Let's not try to get it even more polarized. And, you know, I want to say very clearly that the Congress has made a mess. As Chandan said, the Congress has got no political benefit with quotas in the general election. Now, in Maharashtra is not the election which we've just been through with Mr. Modi as the prime ministerial nominee. Maharashtra is a different election, different cup of tea. Muslims vote for BJP, Muslims vote for Shiv Sena, Muslims also vote for Congress. Let's not divide the polity. We are bringing up a reservation issue which is not going to work, which is only going to work against the Muslim community. It's going to divide votes on communal lines.
So you believe it's going to be completely counterproductive? That is an argument that has been made before.
Not only
you believe it's harmful and counterproductive?
Nidhi, not only counterproductive.
Yeah.
I think it's malicious. It should not be done.
Sanjay, malicious is what Amir Raza Hussain says. It's malicious, it's counterproductive. What you're doing isn't going to help.
So Mr. Amir Raza Hussain believes that the Constitution is completely defunct in terms of his ideas. I mean, why does the Constitution have reservations,
no,
Mr. Hussain?
It doesn't allow you to give reservations
Let me
on
finish.
religious lines, Sanjay.
Let me finish.
3 months before
Let me finish. If you look at the OBC reservation, it has been approved. 1 minute, it has been approved by the Supreme Court.
That is different.
1 minute, let me explain. And if even where Karnataka and Tamil Nadu and Kerala are concerned, they are within the OBC quota. Why are you running away from the debate? And Chandan, you haven't answered the larger question.
Let me just put
You're
the facts
okay
out there.
with reservations for the Marathas, but you are against the 4% reservations for the Muslims within a category.
Okay, 1 second. Let me just clarify to viewers here that as far as the issue of reservations along religious lines are concerned, that is a matter that is pending before the Supreme Court. A constitution bench is still hearing that matter. The Andhra Pradesh government twice tried to bring in quotas for Muslims. Both times they were struck down by the Andhra Pradesh High Court. In the interim, the Supreme Court allowed the state government to continue with that quota in the interim, but the matter still hasn't had a final word from the Supreme Court. And the centre was not allowed to do the same thing when it approached the Supreme Court earlier this year. They wanted the same interim arrangement at the centre for their 4.5% quota. The Supreme Court said no, there is no provision for this. Siddharth Bhatia, weigh in on this as our commentator from Mumbai tonight. How do you see this move then by Mr. Chauhan and his government, a desperate attempt before the polls?
You know, I think all our three previous panelists got discussing the Muslim quota. I think our eye should shift from that ball to the Maratha ball. You are looking at 31% Marathas in this state. The Congress and the NCP have traditionally controlled this segment. The Marathas, various kinds of Marathas, backward as well as extremely well off, creamy layer, are extremely powerful in politics. And they've been demanding this, and various panels, various state governments have struck it down. Now, 31% of the vote, the Congress and NCP have a feeling that during the Lok Sabha election, this segment, which controls sugar cooperatives, which control money and banks, has deserted it completely. And this is where it's heading. The Muslim thing is a bit of a red herring, if I may say. Of course, it will bring its bonuses, but that's where we should be concentrating, because the Maratha vote is now critical. And if the Marathas start drifting towards anyone else permanently, then the Congress and NCP, which have had this kind of pocket borough, will start suffering very, very badly. So Mr. Pawar is absolutely correct when he says if it brings us advantages, so what? They have got their eye on that percentage. And with Mr. Munde not on the scene anymore, there is a possibility that OBCs, who may get a little angry at this, may also start seeing some possibilities in the Congress and somewhat get divided, because Mr. Chhagan Bhujbal, who is an OBC leader, I'm sorry to go into some detail, but he has said we have no objection. So let's look at the Maratha vote rather than just the Muslim vote.
I think what you say is very important.
Really is about
what you say is important. I'll take that to Ashok Mani, because
actually
when you add up the reservation for Marathas and the Muslim quota, the total reservation then in Maharashtra is 73%. It of course completely violates the Supreme Court limit, but 73% reservation.
Well, to be fair, it's something close to that number, maybe even higher in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, this is the first time, this is perhaps the first time a state government has taken reservations above 50% after the Supreme Court put the 50% limit. I think Rajasthan tried doing it some years ago as well. There are two things here. One, certain Muslim subgroups are regarded as OBCs in many parts of India and are part of the Mandal OBC reservation list. But as you quite correctly said, to categorize an entire religious community as backward, which the Congress tried doing in Andhra Pradesh very controversially and has tried doing now in Maharashtra, and which would lead to the ridiculous situation of the Nizam of Hyderabad being declared a backward caste if he were still around today, is, defeats logic. Second, when it comes to the Marathas, Siddharth is right and wrong. Yes, the Maratha community is very important for Sharad Pawar and for the Congress under late Vilasrao Deshmukh especially, or under Prithviraj Chauhan. It can be a very important vote bank. But as he himself says, there are various types of Marathas. They are backward Marathas, genuinely backward Marathas. They are very well off and prosperous Marathas who don't see themselves as backward caste. I think the Congress has shown a certain degree of desperation. It's defending a 15-year anti-incumbency. It is a very tough election. It's likely to do very badly in this election, or at least not as well as done the last time. And it's playing a very desperate card on both the Maratha count and the Muslim count. So
Siddharth Bhatia, does it work? I mean, does this reservation politics work? It didn't help the Congress earlier in UP. It is very unlikely, I think I can safely stick my neck out and say, to help them dramatically even in Maharashtra. So why does the same politics get played again and again?
No, I might stick my... No, I might stick my neck out along with you, Nidhi, in this one, because the Congress and the NCP, there are a lot of double incumbency, of course, at the center is gone now, but 15 years of various problems, scandals, scams, farmer suicides, etc. So, suddenly to try and retrieve this is not going to be easy. But look at it the other way. If they hadn't done something like this, something dramatic, even what they could have lost, what they now may slightly regain, that would have gone lost. So they would have been completely wiped out. The hope here is not perhaps to win, but to lose maybe with a little less of a desperate margin. And that is what it is, because I think Mr. Pawar, this is a major election for him. He has been losing influence. He's come with 4 seats and the Congress has come with nothing almost. If this Mr. Pawar does not do this, he might end up losing the Marathas in various other categories, in various other fields, including the banks, the sugar cooperatives, and that cannot happen. So this is him trying to control, and the Congress will go along with it, because the Congress is also Maratha dominated party. So it is a desperate attempt, but it's a desperate attempt to not let it get out of hand, the defeat get out of hand. That's what I would say. I doubt it's going to help them beyond a point.
Sanjay Jha, you've heard the rather scathing analysis of this from all the panelists actually tonight, including Amir Raza Hussain.
Well, all I can say is, responding to what Ashok mentioned earlier, that, the Mandal Commission was very clear in terms of segregating what they called as a creamy layer. So the issue of everybody from the Muslims being considered backward doesn't apply. That's the reason why there was a select number of 80 Muslim groups that were deemed backward. I'm not a psephologist, so I'm not going to sound pessimistic like Siddharth Bhatia sounds about the prospects of the Congress party. This is a different election. I agree with him that yes, 15 years will create some anti-incumbency, but let's cross the bridge when we come to it. But I think the bigger point here is that the BJP today in your panel is not said a word on the Maratha reservation, and therefore I told you at the very beginning, Nidhi, that end of day there cannot be double standards here. There are issues. Marathas are 32% of the population. I was told by somebody before I came on your show, who's a very well entrenched local person in Maharashtra, that there's not a single IAS officer who belongs to the Maratha cadre. So there are issues here. I mean, underrepresentation in public service is a very sensitive issue in states. And if a state government is trying to resolve it within the constitution, I don't think you can deem it necessarily political.
But what's important here is that Prithviraj Chavan isn't bothered by the legal tangle that you're going to get into if somebody goes to court over this, because this is most likely going to be stopped. But I think that the Congress and the NCP are clear that they want to be seen to be going ahead with this.
The Congress is not bothered.
Yeah, clearly.
Nidhi, why are you assuming? The
legal roadblocks are already there, Sanjay.
Is making a responsible statement without having done his homework well. I mean, these go through a lot of serious legal scrutiny. There is an interpretation, obviously, because it's a matter of law. But I'm sure this has gone through a very rigid examination within.